A historic day for the city and county of Honolulu, one that's been years in the making and one that so many people would never thought they'd see.
The untying of the Maile marking the official grand opening of the Skyline Honolulu rail system.
A very exciting day indeed. Federal, state, and city leaders are all on hand for this morning's opening ceremony.
And we have team coverage of today's momentous occasion from all angles. Annalisa Burgos is live in Halawa with more on the rider experience. But first, let's begin with our very own Casey Lunn, who's been on Skyline practically all morning and has more from today's event. Casey.
Hey, Mark, Dylan, good afternoon. Really, truly historic day, as you've heard from some of the dignitaries that were riding the rail. And we took you along on H&N from Halawa here over to East Kapolei and back 22 minutes each way, stopping along the way, and a really smooth ride. I just kind of want to recap a little bit of the day. The morning, of course, started with the Royal Hawaiian Band and then comments from the mayor, the governor, and federal transportation officials. A lot of people breathing a sigh of relief that today is here, and it is an exciting day. And I want to talk to Governor Josh Green and the First Lady with us this afternoon. What did you think of the inaugural ride, Governor?
It was smooth, and I have to say the view was absolutely beautiful. A lot of optimism is in the air, of course, today, because it's been a long time coming, but it was smoother and more extraordinary than I had guessed.
Yeah, and I think that you hit the nail on the head there. You know, we can go back and forth about all the political issues, bringing it to this day. You know, you think about former Mayor Frank Fossey, Senator Daniel Inouye, who were recognized on that first rail. It was really beautiful. That didn't get to see this come to fruition. But I do feel that the general sentiment today was one of celebration, correct?
It was, and you know, we had Mrs. Fossey there in the front seat, which was more than just symbolic. It was just absolutely magnificent. So, look, we were happy to see her there, standing next to the picture of her husband, standing next to Senator Inouye, and you had Ed Case, and you had Mayor Blangiardi, and we recognized that Mayor Caldwell was here today, who fought hard for this rail. So a lot of people came together, and a lot of people worked hard to build it.
And it certainly gives you, as has been said, a little bit of different perspective of the city. As somebody that's been all over covering the news, you really see things a little bit different.
That's one of the things that people should come and definitely ride the rail for right up front. As it opens, come and have that experience, because it is a beautiful ride. It is. You can see across the plain here on Oahu, you see a lot of the agricultural land. You see where housing will go in. It's different, and it's certainly one heck of a lot better than being stuck in traffic.
That's true.
So I think a lot of people are going to find that to be the surprise of the rail.
Very good. Governor Josh Green and First Lady with us this afternoon. Thank you for your time today. Again, a really exciting time, and as the governor said, really one of celebration. You know, we've covered the history of the rail, how it had started and stopped, the political process, decades. But again, the feeling today is one of excitement and celebration. So with that, we'll send things back into the studio. Mark and Dylan, worth remembering, though, you don't need your holo card today, and Annalisa will cover this as well. And you can ride for free through July 4th, but starting on Saturday, you will need to get that holo card. A lot of public transit users are used to that, obviously already in place for the bus. But again, guys, it was an exciting time, especially being on there with the mayor, the governor, for that first official inaugural ride of Skyline.
And
Casey, back to you.
And Casey, we got a question before you head out and maybe get back on Skyline. But you had mentioned the political back and forth throughout this entire process to get to this day. How would you sum up the tenor of today's event? And also, too, with Hitachi officials in attendance, kind of what's the feeling going forward on completing the final legs and the next step of Skyline looking ahead?
You know, Mark, it's a good question, and we talked to one of the Hitachi officials about just how much work went into the trial running phase to make sure everything is safe. I think that the sentiment today, as I mentioned, was really one of optimism. Of course, the rail next leg going through Dillingham into, Kalihi, where we all work. You've known the construction there is pretty hard to miss. But I think, Mark, that the general sentiment, as I said, is one of optimism and looking forward. Like you said, we could spend the entire morning talking about the political strife that came along with this, the biggest public works project that the state has ever seen. But the vibe today, if I could sum it up, was one of optimism and, again, looking forward to the future.
That's right, Casey. It's here, so let's enjoy it and hop aboard. Casey Lunn reporting from Skyline. Thank you very much. We really appreciate your coverage. Now we want to send it over to Annalisa Burgos, who has more on the rider experience. Now Skyline officially opens to the public at 2 p.m. with more on what to expect. Here's Annalisa. Annalisa, take it away.
It looks like we don't have her signal up right now. We're going to work to bring you that signal right now.
It kind of sums up how there's a lot of moving parts when you talk about this Skyline rail system here, because our coverage happening today was unfolding in different parts from the end of the line, East Kapolei, Halava, where we also have the coverage unfolding. And of course, earlier in our coverage, Casey was able to take us inside the train with the dignitaries there, Governor Josh Green, of course, Mayor Blangiardi, Hitachi officials. But as Casey was talking about, I mean, again, you can go through all the political back and forth, but to have a day like this finally arrive, it's a feeling of excitement. And the public, throughout the week, we've been talking about the fact that city officials have been, gearing up for huge turnout from the public. A lot of residents eager for this moment to finally get here. And so, through all the, political hand-wringing, to finally get to a point now where the public can actually take a ride and enjoy it free through July 4th, that is really exciting.
Yeah, it's definitely a big day. And we also have some fun facts about each of the rail lines there. Mark, you want to go through some of those?
Yeah, so, to kind of go through the highlights when you're talking about the actual train itself. So each train is 256 feet long, and Hart tells us there are 188 seats on each train, and at full capacity, including with standing, as we saw the officials taking the ride there, holding on to the railings up top. Each train can hold the equivalent of 10 regular city buses. And of course, that leads to another sidebar that's happening with Skyline. Because you have the rail stations all set up, bus routes are heavily affected and impacted throughout the community. What you thought of the routes before, they've either been modified, some have been added, some have been removed entirely. And so when it comes to planning your trip, you really got to look at all aspects involved here.
Yeah, most definitely. Thank you so much for your patience while we work to get Annalisa's signal up. We actually have her here right now. We finally got it. Annalisa, thank you so much for rolling with the punches here. It is live TV. Annalisa, tell us a little bit about where you are and what you're seeing.
Yeah, hey guys, sorry about that. We just missed the train, actually just left. We're here at Aloha Stadium. Basically, we saw that big grand ceremony earlier. It's pretty deserted now. We're waiting for the riders to come at 2, but let me give you a look at what we're seeing. This is the track, obviously, but here is the park and ride, the parking lot, where people are going to be able to park. They have about 600 spaces. The cars here right now are from the grand opening, so they should be clearing out before it opens to the public right at 2, so that each space is available for individuals. And I want to point your attention to those porta potties over there. That is your way to use a bathroom. We have been reporting that there is a bathroom available here at the stations, but the fact is that they're trying to discourage people from asking the attendants to open them, because it's going to be pretty busy, pretty crowded. So they're encouraging people to kind of use those. But if you do have an emergency, don't hesitate to ask one of the attendants. Now, also here, the Aloha Stadium there is available for parking if this lot is full. But just to let you guys know, we asked, and it's $9 to park there, whereas here it's free. So if you can and you make it into one of these 600 spaces, please do so. Come early. But again, they have that available as well. This is one of 3 park and ride locations. As you know, the other ones are over at UH West Oahu and at Ho'opili, and those are available. Let me just take you guys down to the main level. So this is the platform where people are going on and getting into the trains. Like I said, there's nothing happening here, but when we go downstairs, I'll show you. This is the elevator area where you could, let's press ground. There we go. Okay. So this is ADA accessible. There are 3 ways to get up to the platform. You can take the escalator, you can take the stairs, as well as this elevator. And just to quickly wrap up for you guys, we're going to be here all day covering the opening at 2. And here's the main station. And we're going to walk through how you can get a holo card as well as enter. You don't need them, though, for today. You just need them for tomorrow. And then all the rides are going to be free all through July 4th, okay? So we'll have that a little bit later at the newscast extended digital coverage. From the Aloha Stadium location, we are sending it back to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Annalisa. We appreciate your reporting out there. Looks like everyone's having a great time checking out the news
We weren't kidding when we said we're covering this story from all angles. We're showing you inside the actual station, the process to get there. And city officials have mentioned that, you can have an expectation of how things are going to work out, but until you actually get the residents on there, you get the riders on there, that's when you can really see the workflows of how you can plan your day and adjust.
Exactly. And of course, getting to this day was no easy task. The path to get the mass transit system built and going has been full of twists and turns. Now, talk began decades ago, but making the rail a reality was, of course, easier said than done. For a look back at the rail history, Keahi Tucker filed this report.
Talk of a rail project to help alleviate Oahu's increasing traffic troubles first began in 1968 when Neil Blaisdell was mayor. His successor a year later, Frank Fossey, championed the idea for a 29-mile rail line from Hawaii Kai to Pearl City. But Fossey lost his re-election bid in 1980. And a few months later, new mayor Eileen Anderson canceled all rail plans.
Ridership numbers that had been anticipated when HART was proposed are simply not materializing.
But when Fossey was re-elected in 1984, he brought rail back on track. And by 1990, federal money was promised for a 17-mile system. The city wanted a 0.5% general excise tax surcharge to provide local funding. Public support was mixed, but it seemed like a done deal at Honolulu Hale. Then, suddenly, any hope for rail died during a council committee vote in 1992.
Councilmember Mancho?
No.
Councilmember Morgado?
No.
Councilmember Reen Mancho, a one-time rail supporter, changed sides in the final hours of the surcharge debate and stopped the train with a single swing vote, saying the Fossey administration failed to prove the project was financially sound.
I think the people of the city and county of Honolulu, especially the younger generation, have lost out.
Fossey's successor, Jeremy Harris, started bus rapid transit before his term was up in 2004. But a few months later, new mayor Mufi Henneman scrapped the system. He was able to get funding for rail after state legislators allowed counties to impose a GET surcharge to pay for public transportation systems. Oahu's 4% GET increased to 4.5%. It's set to expire in 2030.
It will not waste taxpayers' dollars. I make that pledge to you.
There was also a highly influential supporter in Congress, longtime Hawaii U.S. Senator Daniel Inouye.
I guarantee you this much, I'm going to do my damnedest to see that money comes in.
What followed was years of back and forth over the right route and the exact type of system. In 2008, voters finally had their say and chose steel-on-steel rail. They also voted 2 years later to create the Honolulu Authority for Rapid Transportation, or HART. The city finally broke ground in 2011 for what had become a $4 billion project. But work was soon paused for more than a year because of a federal lawsuit over Native Hawaiian burial sites. During that time, former Governor Ben Cayetano joined the 2012 mayoral race to kill the project if elected.
The most mismanaged project that I've ever seen in my 28 years in public office.
But he lost to rail supporter Kirk Caldwell. Over the next several years, the project struggled with rising costs, public distrust, changes in HART leadership, and billions of dollars in funding shortfalls. The FTA eventually withheld federal money and forced HART to issue several recovery plans. In 2020, the agency canceled a public-private partnership plan for the city center section because bids were higher than expected.
Both came in above $1 billion, almost $1.3 billion above the affordability limits.
I, Rick Blangiardi,
do solemnly swear.
The tough job of figuring out how to pay for rail was then passed on to Honolulu's next leader, Rick Blangiardi. He eventually received federal approval to cut the line 1.25 miles short, ending in Kaka'ako instead of Ala Moana. The city also ditched a $330 million park and ride structure at Pearl Highlands to keep the project's price tag under $10 billion.
Well, our intent was to say, how much money do we have, and how far can we possibly take this?
The city will need to look for other funding to someday stretch the line to Ala Moana. But now, after decades of debate and delays, Skyline, Hawaii's largest ever public works project, is ready for riders.
This really fulfills a 50-year promise to the people of Oahu. We were going to put in a rail system. This transfer ushers in a new era.
A new era and a new way to connect Oahu's first and second cities. Keahi Tucker, Hawaii News Now.
And like we mentioned, we are following this story throughout the entire day. We have multiple teams there at the stations, and we'll have more live reports coming up on Hawaii News Now at 4 o'clock, and also a live hit at 2 o'clock on your digital platforms. We will also have more information posted all online.
Really a comprehensive look on what is happening with Skyline. Now, in other news, significant national headlines today. President Biden says the fight isn't over after the Supreme Court tossed out his student loan forgiveness plan and also made a major ruling in regard to gay rights. Willie James Inman explains.
Advocates for student debt relief marched from the Supreme Court to the White House following the court's ruling against President Biden's plan to forgive up to $20,000 in student loans for millions of Americans.
Student debt cancellation is legal and it is just, no matter what the Supreme Court says.
The administration had argued it had the power under a 2003 federal law to forgive the loans during national emergencies such as the coronavirus pandemic. But in the 6-3 decision by the court's conservative majority, Chief Justice Roberts wrote that the act allows the Secretary of Education to waive or modify existing provisions, not to rewrite that statute from the ground up. Critics of the plan held the decision.
My heart goes out to people who are really hoping to have that relief. I have student loans. I certainly would have benefited. But hey, at the end of the day, let's get Congress. If that's what we want, let's talk to our congressmen.
In another major decision, the court's conservative majority sided with a Christian website designer who said she didn't want to create wedding websites for same-sex couples because of her religious beliefs. The justices ruled in favor of Lori Smith, who argued that her free speech rights were violated by a Colorado law prohibiting businesses open to the public from refusing service because of sexual orientation.
This decision is not what our Constitution, what our democratic republic stands for, which is founded on the promise of equal justice for all.
It is the latest Supreme Court win for religious rights. Willie James Inman, CBS News, Washington.
In light of the ruling, members of the LGBTQ plus community say their rights are being targeted.
I'm hearing from my members today what I've been hearing for months now, honestly, that there feels like there's a coordinated attack against the LGBTQ community. There's a lot of disappointment, a lot of sadness about this ruling and decision.
The decision comes a day after the court made another landmark ruling striking down affirmative action in college admission.
New at noon, a severe turbulence scare on a Hawaiian Airlines flight from Honolulu to Sydney. The airline says it happened unexpectedly about 5 hours into flight 451. 4 passengers and 3 flight attendants needed medical attention. The severity of the injuries is unclear, but we're told the flight landed in Sydney safely. 3 of the passengers were assessed and released, while others needed further evaluation. Hawaiian says the aircraft was inspected and the returning flight from Australia to Hawaii left hours later.
A Honolulu couple accused of supplying the drugs in a deadly mass overdose at a Waikiki hotel are due back in court today. Avery Garrard and Kana Dragaset are charged with conspiracy to distribute drugs that resulted in the deaths of Joseph Iseke and Stephen Berenge. 3 others were hospitalized. The feds say when they searched the couple's Honolulu Symphony apartment last Friday, they discovered more than a pound of fentanyl on their kitchen table. They allegedly ordered the drugs online and received them in the mail.
A gated community in Eva Beach was the site of an hours-long standoff yesterday. It ended when police entered a home on Bittern Avenue and found a man dead from an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. Nearby homes were evacuated as HPD's crisis negotiators tried to talk to the man. So far, he has not yet been publicly identified.
Honolulu police raided a game room last night that officials say was hiding in plain sight just off of a busy stretch on Kapi'olani Boulevard. 9 gambling devices were seized from the room, which is between a strip club and some eateries just south of Ala Moana Center. Police say this is the same game room tied to a shooting death last May. We're told the raid is the latest in a continuing crackdown on illegal game rooms in the city.
We have a much stronger relationship with our prosecuting attorney's office and our federal partners at the Homeland Security Investigations Agency at the federal level. We just ask for the community's patience. We are working hard to take down these game rooms. The problem didn't start quickly. You know, it took a while to gain traction, and it's going to take a while for us to reduce them again.
This is HPD's 13th game room raid this year. No arrests were made because no one was present at the time.
On Hawaii Island, 4 people were injured, 1 critically in a bad crash in Hilo. It happened at around 6 p.m. Wednesday evening on the Daniel K. Inouye Highway when the road was wet from a day of rain. Police say an SUV carrying a family of 5 from South Carolina appears to have hydroplaned and lost control, crossing the center line before crashing into a van. 3 in the SUV and the driver of the van were taken to the Hilo Medical Center for treatment. An 18-year-old woman from the SUV sustained critical injuries and was airlifted to Oahu for further care. In addition to the wet conditions, police believe the SUV driver was speeding prior to the crash. Also on Hawaii Island, a week after USGS researchers announced a pause, scientists can now positively say Kilauea's eruption is over. Volcano alert levels have been lowered from watch to advisory and orange to yellow. Officials say lava supply to the Halemaumau lava lake stopped on June 19th based on levels and behavior of the crater floor. Scientists say sulfur dioxide emissions have also decreased to near pre-eruption background levels. HVO continues to closely monitor Kilauea for any signs of renewed activity.
Well, happy Aloha Friday. The weekend is here. For a look at the forecast, here's Billy V.
If you are traveling next couple of days, let's go and show you what they're dealing with over in the continental United States. Heat is going to begin building up further up along the west coast and then reach into the northern plains coming up by Sunday. So the interior valleys of central and northern California, let's kind of get you in a little bit closer and we'll kind of show you what we're talking about here. Over in California, boy, they're going to see hundreds to 110 degrees at the hottest locations on Saturday. Meanwhile, the desert Southwest, they'll see some high temperatures really in this area all the way down through El Paso, Texas. That'll increase the risk of heat-related illnesses, and that's going to be coming up this weekend. Meanwhile, for us, the reason why we're telling you that is if you are traveling this weekend, so you know what to expect if you're going to those places. Here at home, breezy trade winds, easterly winds 15 to 20 miles per hour, some windward and Mauka sprinkles. You can see the daytime high 88 degrees. The trade winds are going to keep blowing. Even though they lighten up tomorrow and Sunday, it'll still be trade wind weather. As we get through Friday, lighter winds Saturday, Sunday. Monday, Tuesday, they come back up for July 4th. And as we go throughout the week, nice trade wind weather. So enjoy.
Well, that's going to do it for us. Let's take a live look outside. Beautiful. I believe this is the Ala Moana area, Kaka'ako-ish.
Rail will be there someday.
Someday. Not today, but someday. We thank you all so much for tuning in. Remember, we have full team coverage again at 2 o'clock on your digital platforms and at 4 o'clock and our evening shows. Aloha.